Everybody, welcome to this level 1 of Excel, talking about beginner Excel. We're going to talk about a lot of the basic functions of Excel. I've got some cool exercises planned out for you. It will explain a bit of stuff, and I'm going to talk about it now. So today, we're going to talk about, a proper beginning to Excel. I could read this all to you. Hey, Carl, I see you if you wanted to know. You fixed your camera. You see here, I've got the training schedule. I've got the exercises for today. So today we're going to do exercise 1, exercise 2, and exercise 3. They go from easy to hard. This morning we'll do 1, but this afternoon you'll have 2. And at the end of the third one, there's a spicy challenge that makes it even more complicated. You see here, I can show it to you here. If I go on the 3 home budget exercise, which I'll teach you how to make your own home budget, we'll do a spicy challenge. And it'll be quite difficult if you want to do that, but I hope that you're going to have a good time attempting it. Yeah, 5 years. So 5 years I've been training people at Finance Canada with Excel, from the basicest of features to the most advanced of features. And so here you're here to get this proper beginning, and that's a great idea because a lot of people learn Excel in a tribal way. What do I mean learning Excel in a tribal way? Well, you have a guru at the office and he knows all the techniques. Right? And that guru, you end up, learning so many tips and tricks from him, but he doesn't teach you how to get everything from the basics done. And so this class will show you all these basic things that people don't really get taught, since Excel is just something we learn tribally, not actually something we learn in a classroom setting. It's, when you think about it, we've been teaching math and French for how long? Right? For hundreds, not French and English, language training, right, has been around for how long, right? We've been teaching it for thousands of years, right? Pythagoras was like 2,000 years ago, and that's math training. Universities of Plato is like 2,000 years, so we've been teaching math for a long time. We've got practice. But when it comes to teaching Excel, it's been, Excel 2.0 came out in '83, so it's been almost 35 years, 40 years. So we have no experience. So a lot of the people don't get to start properly. So this is your guys' chance to jump into a proper start to Excel and have a great adventure. You might see my dog sometimes in the scene over here, you see, running around. He's a cool dog. Randy? He's part of the show, by the way, my dog. Okay. Okay. So let's get started. If you want to get started today, on your computers, right, just open up a blank Excel document like I would have right here. Oops, right here. So just launch up a blank version of Excel. Let's talk briefly about some simple stuff in Excel, and we're going to get to a nice page I wrote about all this. If you think about interface, a lot of people think about these buttons on top. Right, all the buttons up here and all the buttons that people get to play with. I can actually put an arrow in here to show you what I'm talking about. So all of this stuff over here is what people generally consider the interface to be. And they're not wrong. I'm not going to say that they're wrong in everything, that to say that the buttons on top are important. But what's really important in Excel is understanding the grid, right? What this whole grid is here. That's important. We need to understand how that works. We need to understand what's special about it. Where are the weird buttons about it? And it's a bit weird. Another thing that we have to discuss is the options you can do to a cell. So what does that mean? Like, what can you do to this cell? Most people know you can put a color to it. You can type words in it. You can maybe put color to the words. You understand these things. These are called formats. Okay? And so this is also something that's really important in Excel that's not necessarily clear with all the buttons on top here that I'm talking about. I don't know if that makes sense, everybody, what I just said, but let's try to get some more content to all this. So I wrote this nice little page here to talk about the interface. I actually wrote this with some of my nice parallel pens for the class, for this online class. I was thinking of rewriting the whole thing, but I'm scared that I won't have enough time to write it out and at the same time teach you the class. So I'm going to skip this step where I write it out and just tell it to you. But if you want, I could do this afternoon's written one. So the first thing I want to talk about in the interface section is the cursors. Okay, cursors is a critical thing to talk about. And I can tell you a funny story about it. I actually started using Excel when I was 12 because my dad had factories in Morocco. He had jeans factories in Morocco with 10,000 employees, and he was one of the first people in the 90s to put technology to the factory. And what's funny enough is that, you know, when you're in 1990 in Morocco, you can guess there's not a lot of tech people. So my dad did the strange decision of making his 12-year-old kid the IT guy. You know, because he couldn't find any, so might as well put the kid there. And so here I was managing, you know, 25 IT computers when I was like 12, 13, 14. And I remember the first time I opened Excel, I had played that game. Maybe some of you remember it. It was like a helicopter that dropped people, and you had to catch them on the apple. It was a silly game, but when you went on that game, the cursor changed. And so when I opened up Excel for the first time, when I opened up Excel and I noticed the first cursor, this one, right, that I'm talking about, the selection cursor. When I opened up Excel and I went to my cells, I noticed that it was a white cross. If you look at your screen, you notice it's a white cross. I thought it was a game. I was like, Excel is a game. Now that's a good start, right? When you start thinking Excel is a game, you know you got started properly in your Excel life, right? Now, most people start by thinking that it's horrible and that they hate it, and I hope that that's not what's going to happen. That's not what's going to happen today. But I wanted you to understand this idea that there is a cursor in Excel, and you can see it here because it's the one that shows up when you're in the grid. Okay, the selection cursor lets you select cells. Look at all the cool selections you can do by clicking and holding when you see the white cross, the selection cursor. Now, this is the evident cursor. You all know this cursor. I don't want to spend too much time on it. But let's go see what the other cursors I've got in stock for you here. So another cursor that's pretty important in Excel is the column size adjustment cursor. You see, look at what it looks like. The column size adjustment cursor. This one is located in between your column letters. Let me show you where that is. Let's get my arrow going. So you see here, in between the letters A and B, here, in between the letters B and C, right here. I don't know if this arrow is clear enough, right? Right here, in between, not in between here, right? This is no. Over here, in between A and B, like this, C and D, all this. This is what I want. So if you do this, you'll locate. Let me remove my arrow and go to my Excel. You see that the cursor now, if I go in between B and C, you see what it looks like? It looks like that thing I drew, right? With the adjustments. It's to show you that if you're clicking there, you can adjust the size of your column. So if I would go in between B and C like this, I can click and grow the column, which is really neat. So this will lead us to the first thing we're going to try to do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go in B2 and we're going to type our names. So I'm going to type my name. And in C2, I'm going to type my age. All right. So first thing you might have noticed is when you put your age, it might have cut off the end of your name. And for me, it did JamesWDH, which is a weird name, which, you know, maybe if I was half Asian would be possible. But, you know, it doesn't sound right. And so what it did is it cut off the name. And so this is quite interesting, the fact that it cut off the name. And this is because anytime you type text and there is nothing in the cell to the right, it goes straight through. So you see, since anytime you type text, since there's nothing here, there's nothing here, there's nothing here, there's nothing here, the text goes straight through. But as soon as I would put something here, as I put, I don't know, test, you see it cuts. And so where is the text? Is it in this cell? Is it in this cell? No, right? The text is in this cell. And since there's nothing here, it doesn't stop it. So that's why you have to understand this, because it's a weird thing of Excel how the text leaks through like that. But anyway, I hope everybody typed out their names as I was hoping. What we're going to do now is we're going to, I'm going to show you a cool tip. A lot of people know about this, and it's a really great trick. If you go in between B and C, where the cursor is, and you double click, what it will do is it will go to the longest thing in that column. So you see, if I bring it back down like this, you see, I go in between, I double click, it goes to the right size. I can do the same with my age. You see, since it's a short column, there's a lot of space there. So if I go in between C and D here, and I double click, you see, it shortens it. So it does two things. Not only does it make it longer, it also makes it shorter. You could define that double click as go to necessary size. It goes to the size necessary so that it goes to the smallest or longest thing in your data. And so this is the longest, not smallest thing in your data. So it's great. It's super useful, this shortcut. The double click that you can do when you're, in the column. Interesting. I'm going to show you another interesting thing here, by the way. You can go in D2 maybe, if you want to go in D2. And what I'd like you to do in D2 is I'd like you to hit a shortcut, which is Control semicolon. Okay, you do this, you'll get today's date in that cell. That's pretty fly. I like that. You know why? Because often in Excel you're doing things that are related to your life and time. And so often being able to put today's date is a very useful skill. Sometimes you don't exactly want today's date, but it's pretty close to yesterday and the day after. So Control semicolon, the first shortcut of the day I gave you. Is it? Maybe. I'll give you a lot today. So if you put today's date in Excel, as I hoped you did, if you take your column and you crunch it down, si vous prenez votre colonne puis vous la baissez pas avec double clic, by click and drag, I want you to notice that you get this hashtag showing up. I'll show it to you again here. So you've got your date in D2, you go there and you crunch it down, and then you get hashtag. If you see that, don't panic, right? You just have to understand that it's about the width of your column. Okay, so if you were to double click, as I showed you, right, in the between, it would go to the necessary size and it would show that text. Okay, so, well, it's not text, it's a date. This works with numbers and date. Text, if you crunch it down, doesn't do hashtag. Only numbers and dates, when crunched down, will do hashtags. Strange stuff, but important stuff. Alright, let's go to the next cursor. Is this still working? Oh, it's still working. Alright. So the next cursor that we're going to talk about right here is this one right here called the Select Entire Column cursor. The Select Entire Column cursor, which is located, go back here and let's get my arrow, which is located on the letters. So if you go on the letter E or on the letter C or on the letter B, right, if you go on the letters, you'll find that Select Column cursor. I can go find it for you here. I'm just going to check my chats. Okay, good. Everything's working. So you see, if I go on the letter D, on the letter E, on the letter F, once you go on the letter, you can see that there is a black arrow that points down that lets you select the entire column. This is useful because sometimes you want to put a certain format or a certain style to an entire column. Imagine you don't have to do this, but in the exercise you'll have a situation like this today. But you've got a lot of amounts, right? Maybe these are sales, and you'd like them to all have dollar signs, right? And so what you can do is you could select your entire column and then press the dollar sign button in the Home tab, right? I don't know if you see it well. It's a bit small maybe, but I could get my arrow to show you where it is, right? The dollar sign button right over here. That's a bit big an arrow to point this small of a button here. But you can see this button here, the dollar sign symbol, which is in the Home tab. I press the dollar sign and you see all of it looks neat with dollar signs on it. Right? So the column selection is quite useful, and we often end up selecting columns in Excel because Excel works with columns a lot. You see, it works with everybody. If you don't like having this bar on top, just double clicking. You see, I double click the Home tab. Now it's not permanent. I double click it and it comes back. So you can just double click the title and it goes and it comes back. So this is interesting, and I wanted to talk about this a bit because you can select more than one column at a time. You see, you can go on a column and drag to the right, or go on a column and drag to the left. And this is useful because sometimes you did stuff like I just did here, right? What do I mean stuff like I just did here? Well, oops. You know, you've got a, I'm just going to redo what I did. You've got a column like this, and you've got a column like this, and you end up deleting all your stuff, and you realize that all your columns are not the same size anymore. And I don't know if this drives you crazy, but to me, it drives me insane when I get to a file and there's a bunch of columns that aren't the same size and they're blank. I'm like, why? What happened here? Like, what type of disaster happened in this area for it to get deleted? And so this is why the select column is useful, because look, they're all different sizes here, right? You can see that they're not all the same size. But if I go on A, select B, C, D, E like this, and I change the size of one, they all become the same size. Je vais le dire en français, ok? Alors, si tu choisis plus qu'une colonne comme ça, et tu vas changer la taille de une colonne, toutes les colonnes vont à cette taille-là. So look, I'm going to make them all small. You see, I make this one very small. I click, they're all small. I click like this, they're all large. So if you select multiple columns and you drag one of them, it lets you make all of the columns the exact same size, which is a very neat trick if you're trying to make columns that fit nicely of the same size. You know, what's your other way, right? Go one by one and look at that number that pops up, 45 pixels, okay. 45 pixels, okay. And do this. That's going to drive you crazy. Don't do that. To finish off with this this section on this, because I want to move on. Imagine you had things like this here, right? And all three of these aren't the right width. All three of them. So I would need to get them all. So I could go on each one, double click here, and double click here. That would take some time. What I could do, you see, is you can select all three columns and you can go double click and they all automatically fit. This is very useful when you import your data from the bank or from anywhere. Because when you import data, it comes in exactly the same size everywhere. And all of your data requires different sizes. So it's nice because you can just select all your columns, go in between, double click, and boom. They all look the right size. And you know, I've done this at one time I did this in an advanced class at finance. I still remember I was teaching the most advanced topic I could, Power Query, and I was in front of all these great users. And I get this data and I just receive the data and I do that double click thing I just showed you, and there's like 3 people that are stumped. They're like, what did you do? Like, how did that happen? And I wasn't like the super uber level, you know, like 10 days farther. I was like, well, maybe you should come to level 1. There's some useful information in there, you know. So we've talked about these 3 cursors. They're very important. The adjustment of the columns, the selecting of cells, and the selecting of columns. I've got another cursor which is kind of mind-blowing. The move cursor. The move cursor is in PowerPoint, it's in Word, it's kind of everywhere. It's a very common cursor. It's the one that lets you move things around. When you see that cursor, you know you can move it around. So where is the cursor located? This one's a bit more dynamic. This cursor, if I am to show you, this cursor is located around a selection. You see, so all around this selection. So a selection could be this. On the border of your selection, you can find this cursor here. It's a bit hard to see, but maybe I can get my trusty arrow to show you what I mean. Oh, can I still have my selection and my arrow? No. No arrow and selection at the same time. I'm sorry, everybody, but I can put the arrow and go here. So you see, if I would go where on the border of my selection, you can move. Moving is important because sometimes you want to organize your stuff differently. So let's say, I don't know what happened to these poor things. Yes, it's the date. Oh, are we really 44,000? Are we day 44? Oh God, this is cool. You guys, I might have to explain that to you. I don't want to. Okay. So if you go on this cell and you go on the border, you'll locate that cursor I'm talking about, the move cursor. You can click and drag it to drag that piece wherever you want in Excel. So you can click here, drag this over, click here, drag this over, click here, drag this over, click here, drag this over. So you can use this cursor. Okay, tu peux utiliser ce curseur qui se trouve autour d'une sélection pour amener les choses à des places différentes. Do you want to know what's great about it? Is that it doesn't break formulas. So there's stuff in Excel that when you copy and you paste, it breaks the formulas. The formulas don't work anymore. But if you move it, the formulas survive. Right? We're going to do some formulas today, but I can show you one here. You see here I made a formula. It's equals B1. Right? So what it does, you see equal B1. The hand is because you have a Mac, Natalie. Do you have a Mac? Yes. Oh, there's two Natalies! Sorry. Natalie Lamy has a Mac, and the Mac has a hand, not the cursor for. It's not the same. So anyway, sorry. I'm not talking to Nathalie Charon on time. Natalie Lamy. Whew. Anyway, let's get back to this here. If you see here, I have a function called equal B1. Right? And all it does is it connects this cell here. So if I put 12, this becomes 12. If I put 56, it's 56. If I write James, it writes James. Simple connection. You see how I did it? I went here, I typed equals, I click the cell, I hit enter. It's connected. Now, if I were to copy paste this, it's going to break. Check it out. Right click copy. I go right click paste. And you see it gives me this, which isn't the same. But if you were to move it, you see I click it here and I move it. You see it keeps functioning. I can go here, type John, and it becomes John. I can go here, type 12, and it becomes 12. Because I use the move cursor, the formulas don't break. So if you're scared of breaking your formulas in your file because you're not the one who made it or you're using something else, using the move cursor will yield better results than trying to copy-paste stuff around. So it's important that you not copy paste in Excel too much because Excel doesn't work so well with copying and pasting. There's a lot of it. We're going to talk about it today. Stressez pas trop avec ça, on en parlera pas mal aujourd'hui. Okay, now this is the mind-blowing cursor. Okay, the one that's coming now is the fill handle. The fill handle is always located in the bottom right of a selection. I'm going to show you where it is in a second. But the fill handle does some special things. Like, let's say you would write week 1, and you would like to get week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. That's what the fill handle will do. It will also fill series, like 1, 2, 3. And it also does some pretty magical stuff that someday maybe you'll understand, but maybe not today. But it does change reference styles. So it does equals B2, equals B3, equals B4 when it brings it down for math. It's a bit tricky. You will understand it later. But what I want you to know that if you would put dollar signs, it would remain B2, B2, B2. The dollar signs make it so that if you fill, it doesn't change. So that's the difference. We're going to go check it out and make some sense of it here. What I'd like you to do, you can go on a new sheet. You see at the bottom down here in Excel, I could get another arrow. There it is. So down over here, you see the plus button, you can click it, and that will add a new sheet. So you can all go, add a new sheet. In your new sheet, I'd like you to type week 01 like this. Alright, let's go. So, we've got week 01. What we're going to do is we're going to locate the fill handle. You see, it is located in the bottom right corner of your cell. So if you click out of week 1 and you click back in, you'll find a black cross in the bottom corner. If you find that black cross, you click on it and you drag down, you'll notice that it does week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. Which is nice when you're trying to make a plan. Right? Because you're trying to make a plan. You're trying to say, week 1, we're going to change the kitchen. Week 2, we're going to redo the bathroom. Week 3, we're going to start cutting some wood. You know, I don't know what your plan is. But you can see I live in a nice log cabin. And I've got some, you know, plans for my life in the woods. It's quite interesting over here. I see that Natalie is also part of the log cabin world. Or maybe it's just the style. But, you know, it's a way of living. But regardless, it's nice that the black cross works this way. It works with a lot of stuff, by the way. Like if you type Monday and you drag it down, you'll get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you've got a French computer, you might have to write lundi. Depends on the computer you've got. It also works with months. You see if I write May, why May? Because it's the shortest one, right? September is a lot longer to write. You can start with anyone. You see May, June, July, August. right? It will work with months also. Also great if you're making a plan, like I'm planning what I'm going to do in May, in June, in July, you can just quickly do these things so that you can save a lot of time. It's quite nice that you can do this. You can use it with numbers. Like you see, you can do 1, 2 like this. And this is the hard part, you have to select both. Ok, alors je répète parce que tout le monde, ça peut être mélangeant. Si vous voulez faire comme ça, là, si vous voulez faire 1, regardez. Si je prends juste 1 et je l'amène par en bas, ça fait juste 1, 1, 1, 1. Ok? Si je prends 2 puis j'amène juste 2, ça fait juste 2, 2, 2, 2. Pour que ça fonctionne, if I want it to work, I have to select both 1 and 2 and then drag it down like this. And you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so you have to use both like this, right? I'll show it to you again. 1, 2, je choisis les deux, et ensuite je vais sur la croix noire, et je remplis jusqu'en bas. I want the black cross, and I bring it down. Why is that useful? Well, because you can change what you want to do. You could put 5 and 10 like this. And 5 and 10, what's the next logical thing after 5, 10? It should be 15 and 20. So you see here it just goes 15, 20, 25, 30. It works, right? I can do 2 and 4. It will also work like this. So it's something that lets you build increments. It has its uses, but it's nice that Excel has these features, and these are all located in the black cross right over here. I use it a lot for things like question, because I make exams. And so I'm going to say question 1. And then, it's nice that I don't have to write question 2, question 3, question 4, question 5. I can just drag it down, right? So any text and a number will automatically follow up like this. So it's really neat. And I'm a big fan. So I hope that you're going to give it a go and try out this fill handle. And so this was for the cursors. And as I said, the move cursor and finally the fill handle that does a lot of magical stuff. Now finally, I want to spend a bit of time talking about formats because a lot of people work with formats, and I'm going to skip some because they're pretty easy, some of them. But what are formats? I could ask somebody here to tell me what formats are. Some people, heard format like format your computer. Those are two different types of format, okay? When you say format your computer, we mean delete all of what's on your computer. But when we mean format a cell or format a document, that means making the cell look different, giving it a style. And so what type of styles can you give? Well, you can change the font, right? That's how the writing is, right? I'm pretty sure all of you know what the font means, right? Okay. Another part that's more interesting though in Excel is the border. Okay, border format means how are you going to set the colors of your borders, and some people have a bit of a hard time with borders in Excel. And so let me show you how I like to do my borders. Okay, so there's a lot of ways of doing your borders, but what you have to do is you have to be able to reach format cells. So if you select stuff with the selection cursor, right? If you select stuff this or whatever, right? If you select stuff, you right click and you go on format cells. In the format cells section, you'll notice all these things I was talking about, right? There was font right over here. Let's change font. There's also border right over here. That lets you change border, including if you want some outlines. Right? If you want lines like this. It's a bit weird because you have to click the style first and then apply it where you want it. So let's say I wanted bold borders around and dotted borders inside. Bold borders around and dotted borders inside. You see, look, I go here on the bold border and I can click on the line like this. It puts the borders like that. Then I can click the dotted line and put it in the middle like this and put it on the side like this. And you see, I made my design here. And when I hit OK, you see it puts those borders, right? I've got all the dotted lines and I've got the thick border around it. And so to repeat, pour répéter tout le monde comment j'ai fait ça. How do you put borders in Excel? You select something, a bunch of cells, one cell. It works, right? You can do whatever you want. I selected all these cells here. I right click, I go format cells. The shortcut to do that is Control 1, by the way. We'll talk about it later. Border And in the border section, you can, like I said, choose how you'd like your borders to be. So here you see I've only put thick interior borders. And so you see here now, it looks like a tic-tac-toe game because I was able to do this like this. And that's for borders, how it works. All right, interesting stuff. The world of borders and the things you can do with it. Let's go back to my hopefully uncrashed tool. So anyway, alignment is another important thing. So an alignment is this idea that you have a cell. Where does your text show up? Is it in the bottom left, the bottom right, the top left? For alignment, I'm going to go add a new sheet to my Excel to show you a bit of what I do because I like showing to you guys my techniques, my methods. I'm going to make this really large cell. So you see I grew row 2 here. I went in between 1 and 2 and I grew it. And I went in between B and I made this specifically large cell. And I'm just going to type text in it. And you see that when I type text in Excel, it's bottom left, right? Bottom left. That's where the cell gets aligned. If you go under your Home tab, there's all these neat buttons on top here that help you play with your alignment of your cell. So you see I can say center. You see how it's centered? Top are over here. And I can say left, right, or middle. Right? Left, right, or middle. Top, left. So I have these options here for Excel that are under alignment to align the text inside of your box. So now that the text is in the middle, I chose middle, middle. Alignment is an interesting concept, by the way. Alignment has its weird perks, like the fact that if I write numbers, right? What is a number? Is 14 a number? Yes, right? 14 is a number. You see 14 is to the right. And if I write text, you see text is to the left. And so that's an interesting thing about alignment in Excel. When you write text, alignment is going to go to the left. And when you write numbers, alignment goes to the right. All right. 9 more minutes, everybody. And then we're off to our first break. Okay. I want to talk about these last formats. Hopefully my thing didn't crash. Great. So filling is another part that's important, which is the background of a cell. I'm not going to show you how to do it. These are very simple things. It's like font. It's pretty straightforward. You just click the button. That's the paintbrush, and you can put a color to the cell background. By the way, that's one way of doing it. The one that's interesting and that's difficult is the number format. The number format is the visual representation of a number. The number format is a visual representation of a number. What this does is it lets a 5 become $5 or 500% or a date and even time, which is interesting in what it means. It's a bit bizarre. Let's see what I mean. So, as I said before, imagine you had sales, right? Imagine you had sales, and all these sales have amounts. $34, $55, $12, $45, $22. Right? I think you can see this, right? It's pretty straightforward, right? This idea that I've got sales. Maybe here it was t-shirts, and here was socks, and here was pants, and here was socks again, and here was t-shirts again. Whatever, right? I made these sales. You know what happens? You remember what I told you about text and numbers? I said something, right? Text is to the left, and numbers is to the right. What if I were to write $44 like this? Is it written to the left or to the right? Look at my $34 on my screen. Is it to the left or to the right? It's to the left, right? Like if it was text. And so because it's text, Excel won't be able to sum it. Look here. Maybe you didn't know this strange trick, but if you select cells and you go at the bottom here, it says the sum of what it is. I know it's a bit hard to see on my screen. I'm going to crunch it up over here, but you see right over here at the bottom, if you select cells, it shows the sum. So it's the sum of these cells are 134. But you'll notice that if I take the sum of these ones, of this sale with $34, it's still 134 because this is text, right? Because I put that $sign like that, I made it text. And by the way, that's the best way to do tax evasion in 2020, right? Because if you do this, you can put numbers in your taxes that don't get summed. Dum dum dum. Tricky techniques This is a joke to try to make you realize how serious this is, right? Because this is a big problem. If you input numbers like this, you are going to break Excel. And I'm sure that the people working with you don't want you to do this. So what do you do if you want dollar signs? That's where the number formats become important. You see, I select all my numbers, I right-click, I go Format Cells. Inside of Format Cells, there's a section called Number. And in that section called Number, you can choose Currency or Accounting, which are both very useful. You can change the decimal points on it also. And if you hit OK, you'll notice now that your numbers get dollar signs, but they remain to the right, meaning that they remain numbers. Cool, right? This also affects things like percentages and dates. Now this is a bit tricky. But if I were to write 5% without putting the percentage symbol, I would have to write it like this. Right? Does anybody know this? Right? The fact that when you write a percentage, right, and you want to write it down in numbers, you have to write it with the decimal, like this. Right? So 10% is 0.1. Right? 15% is 0.15. 100% is 1. And so if you wanted these to be seen as percentages, you can select them, go right click, Format Cells, and inside of Format Cells you can choose percentage. And if you do that, you'll notice that this becomes 5%, 10%, 15%, 100%. So this means that if I were to put 5 like this, 5 is going to be, you see if I do it, Formula Home, and I press percentage, 5 becomes 500%. So because percentages are decimals, that's how it works. So if you wanted to write 5%, you can write 0.05. Take this and put the percentage on it. It will put up 5%. You can also, if you want, just type 5%, by the way. It works. Okay? Excel will understand if you write 5% that you mean 0.05. Excel can understand. This and this are the same number. Ok, 5% et 0.05, c'est les mêmes chiffres. Same number. It's just that they're different because of the number format. Number format, which is interesting. And to finish, before I send you on this exercise and this break, I want you to know that numbers are dates also. This is weird. So weird. By the way, I'm going to explain this in level 1, in level 2, and in level 3, and in level 4. So, you know, if you do the curriculum with me, you got to get ready for this explanation because I'm going to give it to you 4 times, right? It's one of the only things I repeat 4 times, so it's weird. So if you don't get it, don't worry, but I'm going to take 2 minutes. Have you ever wondered how weird our dates are? You know, like, how do you check how do you know the length of January, February, March? You know, it's bizarre, right? It's always different. And the technique we learn is this technique, right? Where we go janvier, février, mars, avril, and then in the middle we have this leap. Isn't this convenient? How our knuckles work and how it's just so convenient. And then every 4 years we get a February with 1 longer day. Ugh. I can't tell you how I feel about it. It's just so weird. And so it makes it so difficult for you to know what's 100 days from now. What if I told you, what's 100 days from now? What's 200 days from now? What's 379 days from now? It becomes very difficult. You're going to have to take out your calendar. You know, maybe you're going to do like this. Go down here in your calendar. I'm going to move my face. Right? You go down here in your calendar and start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7. It's not going to work. You're going to get it wrong, right? It can't work if you do it that way. And so this is the bizarre part of dates, right? Because we work with dates that have different lengths by month and different lengths by year, and it makes it hard to know like what's 100 days from now. And so Excel changed that whole gig. It said no years, no months, no weeks, just days. That's it. And then a format changes the number to a year, month, day format. But it's just a format. In Excel, there truly just is dates. I'll show it to you. If you want, you can go in a cell and hit Control semicolon. Now, if you do the same thing I've been doing by going right-click and going in Format Cells, you'll notice that your cell is formatted as a date. And if you were to remove that date and put it to General, remove date and put it to general, you'll notice that it becomes 44,000, which is weird But that is the number of days since January 1st, 1900. Because in Excel, there's only days. And day 1, you see, look, I'm going to show you day 1. I type 1, I right click, I go format cells, and I change it to a date. And you see it shows to you that day 1 is January 1st, 1900. Day 2, January 2nd, 1900. Day 3, January 3rd, 1900, etc., 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 until today, which is day 44,000, which is convenient and rare. It is the first time in my career that I did a level 1 class and that I had the exact same, like a round number like this. So it's bizarre that we get a nice number like this. Normally it's a weird number, right? Because let's say I would take not today, I would take in 2022 May 5 is May, right? Yeah, May 10th. You see it looks like this. It's not important. I right click, I go format cells, and I change it to general. And you see it shows to me that that date is 44,691. And so in Excel, dates are just numbers of days since January 1st, 1900. That's all it is. And Excel transforms it with the format to make it look like a day, month, year setup. And so you can change the format as you please. I can show you this. Imagine that you wanted a format like this. Okay, I'm gonna put it over here. Give me a sec. But you wanted month, right? So September, the day, comma, the year, right? So it would be September 10th, comma 10, comma 2020, right? That's the idea. I'm going to show you how you can do this to force the format in. If you know that you've got proper dates, you can right click, go format cells. In format cells, you can go in the custom area, and here where it says type and it says general, you can type MMM DD, comma YYYY. You see, I typed it here in the type section of custom. And if I hit OK, I don't have enough space, but you can see it looks like I wanted them. May 10th, 2020 to June 18th. I made it look nice. And this worked. Why? Because Excel has numbers, right? It's about numbers, and the date is just a format. It's not actually what's happening. Tricky thing, by the way. That's a complicated thing, and I'd like to remind you that I'm going to explain this to you if you come to level 2, and I'm going to explain this to you if you come to level 3, and I'm going to explain this to you a bunch of times. So if you didn't get it, don't worry. If you did get it, amazing. Hooray. Okay. Let's talk about the exercise. So the first exercise I'm going to have you do, I'm going to put the link to it in the chat. Oh, the top bar got back. You have an exercise to do. You'll have to read through this exercise, by the way. So you have to imagine jumping into an adventure of selling new products, right? You read the whole exercise, okay? It tells you what to do. Down here, I show you how to do it. So let's say that you're not too sure how to do the exercise and you need help. You can go down here in the how-to details, read it, and I have these nice show me how buttons. If you click them, it opens up a GIF that shows to you where to click and what to do to get the job done. All right, so you get to get some help over there. I made all these things, by the way. It's kind of neat. And at the end of the day, you should be getting something that looks like this. And you can even download the completed file if you want to give it a go. And this is how my exercises are going to be. You're going to be challenged to do these types of exercises. But for now, all you got to do is do exercise 1. We continue the class with some functions and formulas. So how do you write some math in Excel? Cool, everybody? Tigidoo!